Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to those joining us in the gallery and those online for Council's April 2025 Council meeting. I'd like to start with the acknowledgement of country, and Councillor Seymour presents Thank you.
Wodonga Council acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the first peoples of the country. We also acknowledge them as traditional owners and custodians across various lands. We pay our respect to their ancestors, elders, children and young people. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and recognise their continuous connections to lands, water and communities across the country.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Agenda item 2 is apologies, request to leave of absence and request to attend by electronic means. There are no apologies, but we do have a request to attend by electronic means from Councillor Quilty. Could I have a mover approving that? Thank you, Councillor Knight. Seconder, Councillor Cowan. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Councillor Quilty, for being available online. Agenda item 3 is Good Governance Pledge, and Councillor Aldridge has volunteered to read that.
Wodonga councillors have committed to undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the municipal community, abide by the Model Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Model Councillor Code of Conduct, faithfully and impartially carry out and exercise the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in the office of councillor under the Local Government Act 2020 and any other act to the best of their skill and judgment.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Agenda item 4 is declaration by councillors of any conflict of interest. Are there any? None, but I would like to disclose that in relation to agenda item 9.5, as councillors know, I am on the board of MAV, which is a not-for-profit member board. I'm also on the board of MAV Insurance, which that agenda item does reference. I was elected to the MAV board and the MAV Insurance board a couple of months ago. I have sought the advice from both our governance officer and the CEO, who have advised that there is no known conflict of interest based on the information provided, just as, for disclosure purposes. Agenda item 5, which is the confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. We have a recommendation there for us. Could have a mover. Councillor Aldridge, seconder. Councillor Knight. Any questions on the minutes? If not, all those in favour? Councillor Quilty, yeah, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. No questions have been provided. Is that correct, CEO? No petitions, which now leads us to the delegates report. Item 8.1, the Municipal Association of Victoria Convention of Councils 2025. We do have a recommendation there before us. Would someone like to move? Councillor Aldridge, moving, seconding. Councillor Cowan, would you like to speak to that at all, Councillor Aldridge?
Happy just to go with the recommendation.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Cowan, would you like to speak to it as the seconder?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. This is my delegates report from attendance at the MAV Convention of Councillors for 2025. And I had a wonderful time, and I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the support of the MAV in providing me or awarding me a full scholarship to attend, which meant that all the costs were covered in that attendance. I was also honoured to represent Wodonga on the mayoral panel for the conclusion of the convention, and I can't speak more highly of the convention. I hope that my fellow councillors will take the time to have a look at my report. I think the standard of presentation and was outstanding, highly professional. It was not only a great opportunity to meet other councillors, mayors and deputy mayors, but it really was a valuable learning experience for me, and it has really deepened my understanding of the importance of ethical leadership. And I think being in the room with all of those councillors and mayors, I can see quite clearly the challenges ahead for local government, but also the opportunities. And I think with the complexities of our task and our responsibilities, I really recommend to my fellow councillors to attend whatever professional development opportunities come their way.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. I'd like to open up for any questions or comments before Councillor Seymour.
Thank you. I would just like to say thank you to Councillor Cowan for attending the conference. I think it can only be a benefit, not only to yourself personally as a professional, but Wodonga. And yeah, I just want to extend my thanks for your representation.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Any other councillors? If not, I'd like to make a comment too. Thank you, Councillor Cowan, for your very comprehensive report of the MAV. I feel like I was there even just reading the report. So very, very comprehensive. And I particularly like your representation of Marcus Spiller, who's the principal partner of SGS Economics. You referenced in your commentary there regarding opportunities of local government. And I like him calling out the greater opportunities for local community wealth building and local economic development. I thought was a really interesting provocation from him. If there are no other councillor comments or questions, then we can put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? Councillor Quilty, thank you. It's just a bit of a time delay there with the visuals. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 9 is report to determination. The first one being 9.1, draft council plan 25 to 29, and the draft municipal public health and wellbeing plan 25 to 29. We have a recommendation before us from officers. Would someone like to move that recommendation? That's Councillor Cowan, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Seymour, thank you. Councillor Cowan is the mover.
Thank you. Well, look, it's only been 165 days since we were sworn in as a new council, and with this council plan, I feel very optimistic about the term of this council and what this new council can do in working strategically together with the council team to deliver on the council plan. I'm very optimistic about our intentions of lining up the efforts of council with the expectations of our community. These plans have been developed for now until 2029, and they've been shaped with the extensive community consultation that was undertaken for the Community Vision 2050 by the previous council. So, I would also like to thank the community and business reps that turned up to our council workshops in the early stages of our term and helped to guide us, and the submissions that came by as well. There were many of those, including feedback on a range of topics of infrastructure growth, addressing climate change challenges, advocacy priorities, jobs and economic growth, and council community engagement efforts. I especially want to acknowledge the generous contribution of the community sector agencies and partners that came along to multiple workshops in developing the municipal health and wellbeing plan. I was particularly grateful to hear firsthand from that sector about the issues that matter to your community and the ways that council can support you in delivering your services. I think these plans outline how we focus our efforts on positive outcomes for our economy, our environment and our people, while maintaining strong leadership and financial management into the future. I very much look forward to hearing from the community during the exhibition period to see how this draft fits with you, the community, and we will bring this back to the council meeting in June for adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Councillor Seymour, would you like to make any comments as the seconder?
No, I think Cowan's done a fantastic job of covering everything.
Great, thank you, Councillor Seymour. I'd like to open up to other councillors. Any comments or questions? Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Hall. Sorry, I looked your way and then I looked.
Yeah, I thought
I thought Councillor Quilty had a hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so With this, I'd like to thank the staff for their hard work in providing the council with these council plans and the health and wellbeing plan. There is so much work that goes into them and it is very much appreciated. Some of the strategies and themes mentioned in the plans, like the integrated transport strategy, will be of interest to me when it comes up to council consideration, because it was something that was didn't get supported with the council. So I'll be interested to see how that pans out. There are other strategies, plans, themes mentioned in these plans that will require council-linked spending for implementation of them going forward. Depending on what we do in that area, it can be quite costly. Some things may not have a real cost to them. Be more about advocacy or implementation in a more staff affordable way. We've spent about 72,000 plus on both of these plans, and by my calculations, there was between 50 and 60 community members who either participated or provided in, so they participated in some of the stakeholder workshops or provided feedback during the workshops and council feedback pop-ups. I'll also add that we have used the feedback submissions we received with the Vision 2050. So it's a bit disappointing considering the amount of time, staff and money have put into producing these plans that we didn't get more engagement with the community. And with that amount of participation, I'm not sure if it really is a true reflection of the community's views, but that's what we've got. So having said that, I will support these plans being adopted tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other councillors?
Not adopted, but
Oh, sorry.
public exhibition.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Knight.
Thanks for the pickup.
Any other comments? If not, I'll put it to. Oh, sorry, I'll go there again. There's a time delay. Thank you, Councillor Quilty. We're with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully you can hear and coordinate my visual and speech well enough. I would like to echo Councillor Hall, firstly in thanking staff and councillors in working on these plans and putting in their wishes and ambitions and hard work towards creating what we are going to be holding as our so-called Bible for the next 4 years. Like Councillor Hall said, there was a lot of work put into it, including even some grammar discussions about gerund. I would like to echo Councillor Hall's concerns about some strategies, in particular the integrated transport strategy that caused quite considerable debate in the previous council. There is a lot, all those strategies are not just words, there is a lot of meaning in them for the city, and they may or may not be the cause for a lot of cost for us and also huge influence on economic. We are trying to create a healthy and resilient city. At the same time, we have a bit of a dire situation with public transport, which the plan allows us to advocate for. But at the moment, we are a car-dependent city economically, and we should consider all factors when working on our integrated transport strategy. There are a lot of other areas there that require careful attention, and I urge the community to have a real good look at it. And in case they have any lack of clarity in what is meant by some of the language or what the intentions are, I encourage community members to contact us and clarify it and provide well thought out comments on what they think about what we're planning for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. If there are no other comments, I'm just going to make some final observations. And Councillor Cowan, Councillor Hall, Councillor Quilty, have done a shout out there to our community members and partners, businesses that have contributed to the consultation process as part of the delivery of this council plan, but also staff. But I'd like to shout out to our council group as well. We're a new team of 7 and getting to know each other. We've all got our priorities that we're elected on. We've had a number of workshops. Some of them have been nice and robust, and I've really enjoyed hearing my colleagues express their priorities during those workshops, and hopefully this draft lands in providing emphasis to those to many of those priorities. There's nothing else. I'd like to put it to a vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. I think Councillor Quilty is your hand up. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Item 9.2 is Councillor Professional Development. Again, there's a recommendation before us. We have a move for that. Councillor Knight has recommended. Seconder. Councillor Cowan. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to that at all?
I'm happy with the policy as it's submitted, and I believe that it's fit for purpose. So we may as well carry on and continue with the use of it.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Councillor Cowan is the seconder. Would you like to any comment?
Just to say that since October 2024, all councillors have been required to undertake mandatory training, including annual training that progressively equips councillors with the skills they need over the term. And this was brought about by an amendment to the Local Government Amendment Governance and Integrity Act. So we are meeting our requirements under the Act. It outlines the requirements, the opportunities, the processes for approval, and the reporting back to council on the appropriate forms of professional development for councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Any other comments or questions from councillors? Councillor Hall?
I'll just preface, I'm going to support it. We do need tomorrow, we do need this policy. And, you know, there's a lot of good things about the policy. I just want to be mindful too, though. And I feel like I'm always talking a lot about money, but it is such, we are the keepers of our community's purse strings sort of thing, and ratepayers. And so I do think we do need to be quite mindful. You know, whilst you know, there's some really good opportunities for councils to, you know, go and do some of this training. Just be, you know, mindful that, you know, we don't want to overdo it either, and just be respectful of where we sit in that space. So just a little bit to add.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Any other councillor comment? Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your comments, and thank you to the staff for amending this policy. Just as Councillor Cowan mentioned, our training program is largely driven by LGA Act, Local Government Act, and a number of other acts listed in the policy. And I am going to support this policy. I would also like to thank the 4 submitters that we had on the draft of the policy, while 2 of them were anonymous and contained general comments about the government. 2 of them mentioned important things, such as being responsible, frugal with the policy. There was a suggestion that the requirements that are not covered by the Act should be carried personally by councillors, and them claimed on their tax returns, which does have a benefit. However, we sort of went with the policy as is. Another comment was about the transparency and feedback that community sees from their responses when they comment on our policies and things. So I think it is important for our education and development policy, we should report every time, and we normally do every time somebody goes to a seminar, a forum. It's always useful for councillors and for community to hear a delegate's report. While
Yes.
I am going to support this policy, I urge councillors to always think and balance the cost versus benefit to the community in the first place. We all represent different sections of the community. We all have our own preferences and interests as far as the operation of the council concerns. But above all, we should consider how much it will cost our ratepayers to send us to a forum or a seminar versus what the community will be benefiting from it. And personally, my preference, there is a lot of benefit from attending various events, educational events and seminars in person in terms of networking and morale. Sometimes it is more cost efficient, time efficient, and same benefit to attend some things online. So I urge councillors to give, when it doesn't detract from educational and networking benefit, I urge to consider the most cost-efficient option for choosing their educational event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courty. I think just on time. Councillor Knight, would you like any right of reply there? No?
No, I'm happy
You all
to
good?
vote.
No other comments? All those in favour of the motion? Yeah, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Agenda item 9.3, fraud and corruption prevention and management policy. Looking to put that out to public exhibition. Could I have a mover as recommended for Councillor Knight? A seconder. Councillor Cowan, thank you. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to that?
Once again, it's a pretty obvious thing. It's in the benefit of our community and ourselves that we have a strong and robust fraud and corruption prevention, and goes out for public consultation. We need to talk to our communities about it, so it's pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Councillor Cowan.
Oh, thank you. I think it's important that we exhibit these policies to our community to help to demonstrate the accountability and responsibility that we take in managing funds on their behalf.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Any other councillors? Councillor Courty.
Thank you, councillors, and again, thank you, staff, for preparing this policy. In preparation for this meeting, I was reading over the fraud and corruption policy on the train yesterday, and my 12-year-old son was reading it over my shoulder. He mentioned it is very important for governments at all levels to have such a fraud and corruption policy, and he has asked me if this policy works well for Wodonga Council. I think they are very good questions that every community member should ask themselves when looking at this policy. I think it does work to the best of its ability, and a number of important aspects, not limited to, but the important ones are having central controls of various systems, having regular audits, including internal audits, and having a number of fraud and corruption preventing controls to and looking at the effectiveness regularly is very important. I didn't find any faults with the policy, so hopefully it will help us run a council free of fraud and corruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courty.
Just
Councillor.
just to add, yes, Councillor Courty mentioned the Audit and Risk Committee. The Audit and Risk Committee has reviewed, our Audit and Risk Committee has reviewed the policy and endorsed it as a tool for risk management and fraud prevention. The policy has also been reviewed by the legal firm Maddox that we use in council. So that gives us a bit of surety about the quality of the policy going forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall, and hopefully we get good interest from the community in providing feedback on this draft. I'm going to put it to a vote. All those in favour? Thank you, Councillor Courtney. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 9.4 is the sale of land at Logic to Formula Forage. There is a recommendation before us. Have a mover for that. Thank you, Councillor Hall, and a seconder, Councillor Knight. Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to that?
I'll just read a bit of the summary. This is a report that follows the process, which includes the proposed purchase by a proponent of small additional land parcels at the rear of the proponent's current and future land parcels. So I don't know, we've had a couple come up with Formula Forage. The land parcel adds to the existing land now consolidated 13 metres wide and a total of approximately 136.5 metres long, which is an area of 1,775 square metres. The land parcel proposed to be added to the proponent proposed. This was part of the optioned first right of refusal that we went into them some years ago, and future land, the parcels. So anyway, so this is basically a follow-up on the 17th of October 2022. And it's coming up to a contract with the land sale set out to heads of agreement. So we're authorising the Chief Executive Officer to do what was necessary to fulfil the land sale and come together with the heads of agreement and bring back to council.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Knight, any comments? Any other councillors? Councillor Cowan.
Oh, just that this was put out to a public notice process, and there was one submission. That submission was that there was no objection to the sale.
Yeah. And I'd also like to make a comment. It's great to see Glenn Wild from Formula Forage growing his business in what was an agreement stretching over a number of years with options and first right of refusals. Clearly Glenn's been able to build that business significantly, lots of export demand, driving a significant freight and logistics task out of Logic, which is all part of the original intent of Logic. So likewise, I'd be, very encouraging of this recommendation. There are no other council comments. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. And also, thank you, Officer Schultz, for your ongoing work and discussions and negotiations with Glen Wild. Item 9.5, Road Management Plan 2025 to 29 endorsement for exhibition. Again, we have a recommendation before us. All those in, could have a mover for recommendation, Councillor Aldridge, and a seconder. Councillor Hall. Councillor Aldridge, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, so basically this is just a recommendation that we place the public exhibition, the road management plan. The draft road management plan sets out the duties of council to inspect and maintain the local municipal road and path network for the public. And once the exhibition is concluded, the feedback will be reviewed and reported back to council prior to the consideration of the draft road management plan for adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Councillor Hall, would you like to speak to it?
The road management plan sets out the duties in relation to the inspection, maintenance and repair of roads, paths, having regard to the type of road and path and the resources available to the authority and budgetary and policy priorities. Look, I think we do a great job with the roads. Driving around today, I did see a couple of potholes, but look, it's going to happen, and once they're notified, they do get onto things pretty quickly. But I do think they do a good job of the roads. My husband actually wanted me to say to our our officers that, you know, that he thought that too, especially with the road that was along. They've been doing down Felting and have done an excellent job down there. So he's a bit of an observer of those. So, but not just in that area. There's other, we do generally, I think, keep up the maintenance of our roads well. And this is just a plan that's going to go out for 21 days and be interesting to get the community's feedback on it. We can always do better, but I think we'll do a good job.
Great. Any other councillors like to speak to it?
Just to add a comment to that, it's difficult a lot of the time. Council cops a lot of criticism on the state of the roads, but a lot of the time they're actually not council roads. And, you know, communicating to the public that it's actually out of the local council's jurisdiction to be able to do anything on those roads, I think is something that we just need to keep advocating for and making people aware of local council's responsibility versus the state government.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. If there are no other council comments or questions, Councillor Quilty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can see a bit of a delay. I can see my hand going up much later than I actually raise it. Look, I would like to echo Councillor Aldridge comments that we do get a few comments from the community when the road is our responsibility and when the road is not our responsibility. I do encourage the community to continue to do so. At one of the community consultations, I don't remember what it was about, but I was at a stall and there were community members coming up and complaining about the state of a such and such road. And I thought the staff did an excellent job explaining to the community member whose responsibility it was, directing them to the right website or the right communication channels to make the complaint. And I think it's a good idea. We are the first point of contact for a lot of our residents, and even when responsibility for maintenance is not ours, we can always advocate and we can always inform and we can always connect the community members with the right department to make their voices heard. And I think our policy allows for us to do that. So yeah, it is. I do encourage community members to talk to us about it and to ask any questions. Rates, roads and rubbish is the paramount task of the council, and regardless of the source, how much is going to be built on top of that, rates, roads and rubbish is what we must do well. And I think this policy will help us. I invite community members to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crawley. If there are no other council comments, all those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now leads us to agenda item 10, reports for noting, and note that there are none. Agenda item 11 is reports for information. 11.1 is the record of council meetings. Any questions or comments on that? Or are we happy to note? Information only. No questions or comments. 11.2, I'm just going to go through these decisions register. We're happy to note that for information only. Thank you. And that's it for agenda item 11. Agenda item 12 is notice of motions. There are none. Agenda item 13 is general business. Is there any general business from council? Councillor Cowan?
Oh, thank you. I'd just like to note in terms of our continued hospital advocacy this weekend, the Corowa, Rutherglen, Wodonga Health Action Group staged a march. They called it Sanger to Banger. It was from the Sanger Street Cenotaph to the Bangarang Park in Corowa. And there was more than 500 people there. I think it tells the tale that we are all part of this advocacy concern across the region, and particularly Corowa is feeling it because their lovely hospital has had its emergency department and its theatres services curtailed somewhat without any explanation, and this is really having a flow-on effect to the Albury Hospital. So, you know, the story continues, the concerns grow, the stories of patients and real impacts to our community are still shocking and concerning, and we do hope to be heard. But my congratulations to that group. That was an outstanding show of support from a small community, and I think that tells a tale that we can't continue to, we have to continue our advocacy efforts in that cause.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. If I could just add to that, it was great to see so many representations from councils within the region, Albury, Wodonga, Indigo, Howlong, as well as Federation clearly, and some, were there any others that I've missed there? But anyway, a great representation from the broader group of local governments also at that rally. Any other general business? No, which now leads us to agenda item 14, urgent council business. There is a proposed motion that an item of urgent business being rate increases and draft 2025-26 budget be considered and be included in the agenda item 14.1. So we need to vote on the inclusion of this as a urgent business item. Could I have a mover for that? Councillor Knight and a seconder for Councillor Cowan. Oh, sorry, Councillor Woodridge, I didn't see your hand. Councillor Cowan is the seconder. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to this being included as urgent business?
Yeah, so I've wanted this included as a urgent community concern due to our discussions and where we were. I feel that we need to move to the rate cap of 3% for our budget. And I have written a few words down. And as a candidate for Wodonga City Council elections, I did run on keeping rates low, but I also ran on fiscal policy and responsibility. And I believe if we don't take the full rate cap of the 3% this year, it will affect our future delivery of services and infrastructure. And I believe we would be remiss under the Local Government Act of 2020 as well. And I quote, councils manage significant finances on behalf of their
Councillor, do you want to just interrupt? Do you want to refer to this motion to?
Sorry, yeah, no worries.
Did you want to talk about why you want this?
It needs to be sorted before May the 19th, before the next council.
Thank you.
We don't have time.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Councillor.
Sorry.
No, not at all. Councillor Cowan, as a seconder, would you like to?
Oh, thank you. I'm supporting Councillor Knight in raising this concern today.
So just put to a vote. All those in favour of this urgent item being put to council.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes. Yes, Councillor Gordon.
I have two questions before we vote. Sorry, are we voting on putting this? We're not voting on the motion. We are voting on discussing the motion. Is that correct?
Yes, we're voting on
Correct.
this being put up as a proposed motion.
Okay, then I'll ask one question to the mover, if that's all right.
Yes, Councillor Quilty to Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Councillor Knight, why do you think it is important to move this motion now separately from discussing and voting on the draft budget?
Due to the fact that I don't believe we have enough time to discuss this without forming any other meetings and getting it done in time for releasing it to the public.
But shouldn't this discussion be had together with the rest of the budget items? How much we're going to make versus how much we're going to spend in ongoing costs and capital?
Well, we've had those discussions on the the early discussions on the 2.5, which showed us that it wasn't going to be sufficient, in my opinion, and that was my opinion alone. I asked for the motion to be put forward. So I believe that if we do not do this, and as I stated before, I'm willing to go into the reasons for why I believe it's a good idea. But I will say that.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. If there are no other questions from you, Councillor Courtney, perhaps if I could also respond, just looking at the governance rules, Governance Rule 22 under urgent business. If the agenda for a council meeting makes provision for urgent business, business cannot be admitted as urgent business other than by resolution of council, and only then if it, and I'll just read 22.1, relates to or arises out of a matter which has arisen since distribution of the agenda, which this has, and 22.2 cannot safely or conveniently be deferred until the next council meeting, which I think is also part of Councillor Knight's rationale. Thank you. Any other questions or comments from councillors? If not, we'll put that to a vote. So all those in favour of this being a proposed motion. So it's Councillor Knight, Councillor Seymour, Councillor Aldridge, Councillor Cowan, Councillor Goebel, all those against, Councillor Hall and Councillor Quilty. The motion is carried, which then now leads us to the next agenda item 14.1, which is the rate increase in draft 2025-2026 budget. With a suggested motion there. Councillor Knight, did you want to read out that motion? Suggested motion, and then I'll ask for a second.
Yeah, but the Chief Executive Officer prepare the draft 2025-26 budget to be presented at the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee on May 19th, 2025 for endorsement for public exhibition and feedback in accordance with the rate cap of 3%.
Thank you very much, Councillor Knight. Could I have a seconder for that? Councillor Aldridge is the seconder. Councillor Knight, would you like to speak to it as the mover?
Will, as I said earlier, as a candidate, I ran on the proposal of keeping rates low, but also ran on the fiscal responsibility. And I believe if we don't take this full rate cap this year, it would have a carry-on effect, and it will affect our future delivery of services and infrastructure. And I quote the Local Government Act of 2020, councils manage significant finances on behalf of their communities and have an obligation to manage these finances responsibly to ensure the delivery of important services and facilities. A second quote is, it is essential for the health and well-being of these communities that council manage their finances responsibly, sustainably and transparently. And these are the three reasons that I'm putting this forward, because I do not think it would be responsible of me for future councils or future budgets if we don't take this rate cap. I don't think it would just be sustainable for our council, and I believe that it would be in the future we'd have a bigger rate jump of a lot bigger numbers, and I wanted to do it transparently, so I wanted to put it out there and make sure that everybody could see it and hear about it rather than have it come from the grapevine. So those are my main reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Councillor Aldridge is the seconder. Would you like to speak to?
Just echoing the sentiments of Councillor Knight, preparing the draft 25-26 budget based on a rate cap of 3% is the best idea because it strikes a balance between the fiscal responsibility that Councillor Knight referenced and protecting the community's economic wellbeing as well, and also ensuring the continued delivery of essential services that are so badly needed in Wodonga, especially even more so during this cost of living crisis that we're going through. So this 3% cap will allow council to maintain crucial programs without imposing an excessive financial burden on residents.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. Any other councillors? Sorry, Councillor Courtney. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, before I comment on this motion, I would like to take the opportunity to ask a question of the CEO through you, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Councillor Courtney to the CEO.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. And the CEO may have to direct it to other officers or answer my question himself, whichever way he thinks is more appropriate. My question is, last year in the previous council term, and it's not just me having this information as a returning councillor, but it was public information. When a modeling for a future year's budget was done, 25-26 modeling was based on 2% increase, and that model ended up with a very comfortable budget. We ended up with just under 83 million in total income, 76.6 million in expenses, and 1.4 million in surplus. We did have a substantial capital program modeled, budgeted, and very reasonable allocations for our ongoing operating needs. And I emphasize with only 2% rate rise. What happened between then and now that we are struggling with 2.5% and want to jump even the whole 1% compared to last year's modeling? Thank you.
CEO.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. I'll hand across initially to the Director of Community and Corporate to respond to that, and I may add to that afterwards.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in preparing the budget, it's obviously at a point in time. When we prepare those budgets, things change. Costs have increased significantly over that period of time. The 2% is a principle that was adopted by Council, I guess, over a number of years, in doing further work around what those rate increases are and looking at taking what the rate caps are. The assumption now is at 2.31%. But I guess when we're doing the budgets, we do a budget and we do a forecast, and we then do a 10-year long-term financial plan. As you go out further into further years, that becomes less reliable and less accurate. That's why we do a budget every year.
Thank you. Any supplementary questions there, Councillor Courtney? No?
No, just a comment. No more questions. I just have a comment whenever it's appropriate time.
Sorry, was it a question when it's at the appropriate time, or would you like to make that now? I didn't hear quite.
Yeah, that's fine. I would like to speak to the motion if that's all right.
Okay, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I love having the floor on the issues of everything budget. First of all, I would like to point out that I'm going to strongly disagree respectfully with the mover and seconder, and I'm not going to support this proposition on exactly the reasons why the mover and seconder have mentioned they are moving this proposition. First of all, while I also ran on the keeping rate rises low, it was not a political move for me. I strongly believe that fiscal responsibility depends on not only how much we charge, but also on how much we spend. And that's also the reason why I voted a bit earlier against looking at rate rises separately from the rest of the budget. I looked at this year's budget line by line, and I strongly believe that we have a lot of room to continue to provide great services, ongoing services, and substantial capital work without having to go from 2.5 to 3%. I believe that there are a lot of items in the budgets that can be dealt with differently, moved away, such as, for example, planning for senior citizenship center, as we discussed, can be moved further on to when we achieve some sales at Logic. Other things such as various community grants can be done in a different way, and that was discussed at an earlier public meeting of Finance and Budget Delegated Committee. Several staff positions that are proposed, for example, having a economic development officer and an advocacy officer can be again done differently, and it's very also very risky to put expenses permanently on the payroll and on the budget that we are not going that we are not 100% sure of success. And that's to name but a few. I believe that there is a lot of room for us to run this city responsibly and sustainably, and continue with a lower rate rise. As we did model, I do take on board and thank our officers for providing their reasons why 2% didn't work compared to last year's modeling. I'm afraid there is no, we are betraying our community in giving them such a big jump. We do not give the community the surety of the future, the ability to plan for the future for their finances. 1% is a big jump. 0.5% is still a big jump, but more manageable. And Councillor Knight, you mentioned going to 3% to avoid future spikes in rate rises and the sustainability. It will happen. It will still happen. Prices will rise, and if we do not watch our costs and do not apply more fiscal responsibility to what we spend on and just continue rising the rates will still rise. We will continue to spend more, and we will not be as much driven at finding efficiencies as we are now. So I really do urge you, councillors, when you vote, to think about it. The more we charge, the more we spend. And honestly, our responsibility to our community is to give them the cost for the benefits for what we charge. Several years, as we can see, 3, 4, 10-year budgets do
Councillor
not work.
Quilty.
We will still. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just noting the time that you've had on the floor. Sorry, were you just wrapping up, and have I interrupted that wrap up?
Look, I can talk for hours about that, but I think I have voiced my opinion. To wrap it up in 2 words, we can do it comfortably at 2.5%, and I strongly do not support 3% rise, and I think it's fiscally responsible to continue with 2.5%. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quilty. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hall? Oh, sorry, I didn't see who was first there. I was looking around the room. Councillor Hall, then Councillor Seymour.
Okay, I think people know where I'm going to go with this as well. Having been on council for 9 years, and I remember when I came onto council, our rate rise was 4.25% and had over the last 15 years been an average of 5.6% per annum, which was, I worked it out, well above the CPI. So we were doing pretty well. But we did have a massive debt too back then. So I've always got that in the back of my mind, and I don't want to head back into that high spending, high rate rise, because the community were ropeable about it. So my view is that Wodonga Council's budget is perfectly fine on the 2.5% modelling. I think what we have is the problem with spending. And for instance, when I was looking at the budget figures for the 25-26 budget, the employee costs have risen by nearly $2 million. Now, the last year's budget factored in a 3.5% EBA agreement rise. And I know there was some extra costs with work cover, and I don't know if they included the extra with superannuation, but $2 million, it's a substantial amount of money. And I believe there's one extra employee that's being added into that. So I have some real questions about that. Also, too, with the projection of over 4% rise in rate revenue, which amounts to 1.92 million, is projected in the budget. So we've got extra rate revenue. So I think we need to be targeting our spending better. I think the rate cap of 3%, I think being fair to we're still 17th highest out of 79 councils with our rates in the state. So, whilst that's come down from where it was at 4 because of prior councils working, and plus the rate cap was brought in because there were the councils putting rates up 7, 8%, and it needed to come in. So I'm very supportive of rate caps. We don't want to get back into that same position again, where we're high spending, high rates, like I said. Based on the rate increase for rate properties, so residential occupied property that pays the rates of, say, 1,709, which is quite small in the scheme of things, will get a rate increase on a 2.5% rate. Modelling will be an increase of 3.72%. So it's not just 2.5%. You actually end up with a higher rate increase. You've got garbage charges on top of that, your waste levy charges on top of that, and the increase to the fire service levy. So it is a substantial amount of money. Our industrial vacant is going to be going up 15.23% on the 2.5% modelling. And with rural non-farming, which there isn't a lot, is 5.67%. So, it's not just the 2.5. If you put it on to 3, it's going to be substantially higher. The AEC report on council's financial position noted that Wodonga Council has spent approximately 127 million over the last 6 years of capital works. So we certainly have not been sitting back on spending. The capital works expenditure alone in 2022-23 was 38 million, which was significantly above the average of 21 million. We've been, I think last year was over 16 million. So, it's not like we're sitting back on any of this. We've got a substantially high cost with our gallery and library. That alone costs us nearly 2 million a year just to run it. We just forked out 180,000 in community grants. Some of that's 100,000 guaranteed for the next 3 years without any extras put on top of that. If we hadn't addressed the deficit that we had last year, we would have been putting an 8.75% rate increase to the community. And I wasn't prepared to do that, and I'll never be prepared to do that because I just don't think that is fair to our people. And so I think, we've got to stop living, above our means. We provide good services. There's nothing wrong with our services. It's just that it's continued push to want to be spending money. And I think 2.5% is a fair amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Seymour.
It's a lot to follow. I suppose my considerations are around the AEC report. And Councillor Knight, you raised the issue of having a bigger jump in following years. And even Councillor Quilty said that that's going to happen. Well, I'd rather reduce the likelihood of that being so big in future years. These are the things I'm considering if we don't go. And this is just a proposal. This is just seeing the budget formed on the 3, and that's going out to public exhibition. So while the recommendation is for the budget to be prepared with that 3%, I don't think that the increase necessarily equates to bigger spending willy-nilly. I think all of us here see this as like we all have a responsibility to Wodonga to do the best with the money. And I think, just where my head is at in considering the 3% increase.
Thank you, Councillor Seymour. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you. You might note that I was one of the only council, perhaps one or two of councillors that voted against the
Three councillors.
okay, 2.5% at the time of the decision of the modelling of the budget. And my reasons, and I really want to be very careful and very considered about this. So please allow me to refer to some of my notes. So each year the Central Services Commission sets an upper limit by which Victorian councils can increase the rates for the next financial year. And this year it was 3%. The ESC takes into account inflation and economic forecasts. It takes into account the changes in costs to council. It looks at the overall financial sustainability of the local government sector, and it considers fairness to ratepayers before it sets the maximum rate cap. So in doing that, the ESC also analysed costs to council, and according to the findings at the time of setting the rate cap, the actual costs had risen by 2.6 to 2.9% from the previous financial year. We know that last financial year, 70 of 79 councils adopted the full rate cap of 3.5%, including Wodonga Council. In fact, during the last term of this council, the councillors engaged a financial consultant, AEC Group, to undertake a comprehensive review of the financial sustainability, given a range of challenges that they were facing at the time. And this report was finalised in January 2024. And I guess it's the basis of this report that influences my decision about this, because some of the key findings were very concerning, and the ongoing financial security of Wodonga Council was in some way being impacted upon by the accumulative impact of rate increases below the ESC recommended cap. So the AEC report made a number of recommendations, including a very significant correction of $2.8 million that had to be made last year. So nobody underestimates the pain that that causes to an organisation in doing that. And that was to improve the operating position of council. The recommendations from AEC also state that council should adopt a policy position to apply the full rate cap increase as set by the Central Services Commission each year. I know from listening to all of the councillors tonight that we're very firmly focused on financial prudence. I know that is one of our key values. I think it's one of the things that we are probably in lockstep on. And we do want to work very hard to enhance the governance, but also to improve our operating position, to improve the availability of cash, to ensure the appropriate and timely investment in assets, and wherever we can look to divest assets that are surplus to our requirements. And that's why I accept the AEC recommendation in adopting a full rate cap increase. I think it is our only choice. I hope ratepayers will understand that this is not, not an easy decision. It's not easy to do something that would otherwise be popular, but it's in careful consideration of what would work for the greater good of our ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Perhaps if I could just also highlight the AEC report regarding recommendation for continued efficiency gains, and with the $2.6 million that this organisation still has to find over a 9-year period. If there are no other comments or questions, I'm going to put it to a vote. So do you write a reply?
Yeah.
Pardon, Councillor Knight, would you like to some further comments there?
Just on the closing comments, like,
Mr. Mayor.
So just before you do, Councillor Knight, Councillor Pilby.
I'm so sorry to be disruptive. It's because you can't see my hand. I just have a quick question to Councillor Cowan, if that's all right.
Yes.
Councillor Cowan, you mentioned, and the other councillors, if they want to answer the question instead. AEC report has been mentioned, and my question to Councillor Cowan and the others who referred to that. As the report mentioned, going up in rate cap and raising rates revenue as one of the options, and achieving savings as a different option amongst like several options that AEC report. Why did you take the recommendation to raise the rates from AAC report as opposed to other options such as achieve efficiencies. Was there any reason to do so?
Oh, thank you, Councillor Coulter. Look, I didn't see those options as being one in isolation of the other. In fact, I believe they're a suite of recommendations, and this is very much firmly entrenched in that suite of recommendations. So it's not that I'm just isolating one in particular. In fact, I think we have a responsibility to consider all the key recommendations of the review, but this is certainly one that is salient to this discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. I will certainly expect respectfully yourself and other councillors to always consider achieving efficiencies along with other options that you choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney, for your question. I'm going to move to Councillor Knight for his right of reply.
So we did look at other savings and stuff, and we did look at other ways of raising revenue. Just going to a couple of the ones that were raised against that was, you know, the 4% increase in our rate income, Councillor Hall raised. Now, that's, to me, as a layman, that's 4% in our capital growth, as in houses in the place. That's a building, so more people are paying 4%. That's 4% more roads. That's 4% more people that are demanding services that we require. That's 4% more lighting, parks, kindergartens, healthcare, all of these things. It's like anybody else's budget. When we all want to have our $100 a week groceries, we would like to stay there for the next 10 years, but that's not how it works. We need to put it up. And if we're growing a city, we need to grow everything. The 8.9% budget rate increase that was going to come if we didn't make those savings of $2.8 million is a prime example of exactly why we need to do this, because if we're not prudent and not making savings at the same time, but we're just going to cut services to our community, but we're still going to do a 2.5% increase as opposed to a 3% increase and give the services as we've got. So that is why I believe that we should carry on with this, and I'll be voting obviously because I moved it. Anyway, that's my right of reply.
That's it. Yeah, thank you for your right of reply.
Can I just ask?
I don't think you can, Councillor Hall, under the governance rules.
Question.
Given that, so all those in favour of the motion.
Do you want to read it again after?
I don't think we need to, but if you want to, just it was on some time ago.
The Chief Executive Officer prepare the draft 2025-26 budget to be presented at the Finance and Budget Delegated Committee on May 19th, 2025 for endorsement for public exhibition and feedback in accordance with the rate cap of 3%.
So we'll ask all those in favour of that motion: Councillor Knight, Councillor Seymour, Councillor Aldridge, Councillor Cowan, Councillor Goebel. All those against? Councillor Hall, Councillor Quilty. The motion's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. And now leads us to confidential business. Agenda item 15 is a recommendation that the meeting be closed to members of the public in order to consider matters pursuant to section 3.1. Thank you for those in the gallery for attending, and thank you again to the Board of Mayor for covering the meeting. I will just give a few minutes. There is actually a motion there to close the meeting to the public. So if I go to the mover, Councillor Aldridge, and a seconder, Councillor Seymour, all those in favour of the meeting, that's carried by everyone. That's unanimous. Thank you. Let's wait for the doors to close and the tape. Thank you, everyone. And we return to the open council meeting. We've got agenda item 17.2, which is adoption of the in-camera recommendation. And the recommendation is that the recommendations of the closed meeting of the council be adopted. If I could have a mover for that, Councillor Cowan, the second, Councillor Seymour. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Which now leads us to agenda item 17.3, the public release of the information. I'm going to ask the CEO to read as per what was adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In relation to the confidential item 15.2, proposed option D, the new hospital land purchase William Page Drive, the council has resolved a confidential and a public recommendation. The public recommendation is that council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to continue negotiations with the respective landholders of the preferred sites for a new hospital.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO, which now leads us to the closing of the meeting, and I'd like to declare the meeting closed at 7:26. Thank you to all participating councillors and staff. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for attending online.